Dobar dan, moje ime je Vukašin Milićević, a ovo je 5. epizoda podcasta PoDSetnik. Moja današnja gošća pripada redu evropskih političara i zvaničnika koji su od početka shvatili, od početka građanske pobune koju predvode studenti, shvatili šta se događa u Srbiji. I ne samo da su shvatili, već su pružili svu moguću podršku tome da ovaj pokret uspe. Ne samo zbog nas, već i zbog vrednosti koje oni sami zastupaju. Moja današnja gošća je socijaldemokratkinja, ona je članica flamanske socijaldemokratske partije Foraut i istovremeno poslanica Evropskog parlamenta u okviru partije evropskih socijalista Kathleen Van Brempt. Kathleen, it's good to have you here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for the honor
I do love your language. I do love. Yeah, I like it very much and try to understand, and I did understand some parts of it.
It's good to hear, really. And thank you especially for your willingness to participate in our podcast.
With a lot of pleasure. Yeah. I love Serbia, and I think engaging in what's happening to Serbia today is important.
Again, it's good to hear that. This looks a bit like a concept for PhD thesis, but we'll follow it nevertheless and try to overcome it in 45 minutes. Our first topic for today is the one related with the really heavy issue in European terms, the issue of populism. And when it comes to populism, especially the right-wing one, we here in the region of Balkans, in former Yugoslavia, are in a worst possible sense a kind of European vanguard when it comes to the last wave of European right-wing populism. But my first question is in more general terms. What is for you, primarily as a political style, as an ideological practice too, populism, and why is it so successful in devaluing democracy and its institutions? But not just democracy and its institutions, but also all the pathways and means of social emancipation in Europe today?
It's a very broad question. And of course, I'm not a specialist in populism. I am a politician and sincerely hope I'm not a populist. No, I'm not a populist.
Yes, but you're an expert in fighting populism.
Yes, I am. Well, expert, maybe to give your listeners and viewers some background. I come not only from the region of Flanders in Belgium, but also from a city that is called Antwerp. It's a port city where extreme right arose not just recently, like in many countries in Europe today, but in the 80s and the beginning of the 90s. And we invented in Belgium, and especially in my region, the cordon sanitaire against extreme right. And extreme right is, you also have extreme left populism, let that be crystal clear. So it's not just right-wing or left-wing, but populism is, let me call it a methodology used by politicians, but also other groups in your society to overcome normal democratic procedures. And it's used to polarize. And of course, some form of polarization in a democratic society is normal, because if I'm a left-wing politician and you would be, which you're not, but if you would be a right-wing politician, we would have arguments, and that would partly polarize people, taking stands, your part, my part. But with populism, it is used in a way that you sort of get rid of the normal democratic space wherein people have arguments. That's one element. And a second element, which is for me amazing, because I'm a left-wing politician, so I am by nature somebody that wants to change things, that wants to make progress and change things, because there's always room for improvement, especially nowadays. But all of a sudden, populists will tell the public that I'm an establishment politician that wants to preserve everything, which is completely not true, but it's a way to put center politicians, center-left, center-right, that have the normal space in democracy, as the establishment that is corrupt, that takes your money, and it is, of course, fake news. And I'm not saying there is no corruption. There's always in your society corruption that you have to beat. But good institutions, which is part of that so-called establishment, good institutions are key in fighting corruption, in installing rule of law. And so by saying we are fighting against establishment and corruption, they do exactly the opposite. They are installing a system that where corruption, ending democracy is fostered very, very easily.
So it's something that is otherwise well known as a concept of anti-politics.
Yes.
Which is literally devouring, I think, a European political
anti-democratic
space.
Politics. Because it's politics at its own. Huh?
Yeah.
Today in Serbia, but also let's not take your Serbian as an example. Let me take Orban as an example. It's a good example. He's been. I often say, also when I look at Trump and what he's doing, I often say that is a textbook Orban methodology, because Orban, although he's gone now, he's been very successful in 16 years using that populist narrative to tear down everything that is part of a normal democratic space. That is, it always starts with attacking civil society. Because civil society by nature is a pluralistic, important actor in that democratic space. And it educates also people. That sounds a little bit like this, but in a sense, it sort of gives nuance to politicians that are in all these sorts of arguments. That's the first thing that they attack. And then comes women's rights, then comes media freedom, then comes independent judiciary, and at the end, it will become very difficult to have free and fair elections, because all of that adds up to ending the democratic system.
And are all these principles that you've just mentioned, is it correct to name them the European values?
Absolutely. I say absolutely, but there are also other.
Are these fundamental European values?
Yes, it's not only European values, because if you go to Canada, you will see the same. If you go to Australia, it's and it's also growing in other parts of the world. But it's for me, it's universal democratic values. But they are a core of Europe. After the Second World War, we not just built a common market. We did, very successful, by the way, because it sort of made the economy of Europe very vibrant. But we also made a political union that grew on the disasters of the Second World War, and the fundamentals is in one word: it's democracy. And within democracy, because people tend to think democracy, that's free and fair elections. Yes, of course, but it's only a part of democracy. Let me give you an example that is often ignored by especially extreme rights and populists. An essential, integral part of a democracy is the protection of minorities. It cannot just be the rule of the majority. You always have to protect minorities.
And also class emancipation.
Yes, absolutely.
Social emancipation.
Yes, absolutely. If you look, it's good that you
very beginning, from the 18th century.
Yes, absolutely. It's good that you mentioned the social protection, because also often swiped away because not very liked by right wing, but an essential part of European democracy is social protection of our people. We have a unique system in Europe that defends our people when they get sick, when they get unemployed, and it's also a fundamental value in democracy. For me, it is.
So we can now go more straightforward, but following these lines. So I want to ask you this question as a politician, not just coming from a social democratic background, but obviously fighting for social democratic principles, and as a person coming from a society that is, as you've mentioned too, very familiar with interethnic tensions. So, and it has to do directly with the European values. According to some estimates, had Yugoslavia survived and integrated into the European community, as many predicted in 1994, as many predicted in late 1980s and early 1990s, it would today have had a population of nearly 30 million. Instead, current estimates suggest that only around 16 million people now live across the territory of the former Yugoslavia, which is roughly 7 million less than in 1991.
I didn't know that. That's interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
It's terrible. So Slovenia, which is certainly the most successful of the former Yugoslav republics, still remains below the EU average in terms of GDP. Croatia, despite being an EU member state, faces serious demographic decline, regional inequality and disparity, followed by structural economic problems, and the constant threat of political destabilization from the far right. The situation in the rest of the region is significantly worse, largely because it lacks the direct corrective influence of the EU political and legal institutions. And I'm deliberately avoiding and leaving aside here the moral dimensions facing war crimes, in fact, denial of war crimes and all other related issues. But beyond the local ethno-nationalist political elites, and all of them are, in fact, that are in power today are of that class, who amassed their fortunes through war and destruction, while brutally restructuring in terms of class and capturing post-Yugoslav society. Is there anyone in Europe who benefits from maintaining this region in its current condition?
Is anybody, repeat that?
Is there anyone in Europe who benefits in all conceivable ways this current situation in the Balkans?
Yes, unfortunately, and not just in the European Union. There's a wide movement in the world that is based on anti-democratic values, and that is fundamentally against the European Union. That's extreme right within Europe. That is extreme right in your society. That is also Trump. That is also Putin. And they benefit in a way to keep this region unstable based on nationalistic feelings, which is really worrisome. I'm a social democrat. I also come from a region with a lot of tensions, not so difficult as in the former Yugoslavia and Serbia.
They are of the same kind.
But we could have had civil war in Belgium between the French-speaking and the Dutch-speaking, because at a certain moment of time the tensions were really extremely high. But we managed to deal with them in a democratic way. So in all of the world, if you go to India, to give an example that is maybe a little bit, if you go to India, you think India, big united country, right. It's so many different ethnic populations, a lot of ethnic tensions, religious tensions. It's part of who we are as humanity. So we need to deal with that. And the way to deal with that is democracy in this dialogue. And if the Western Balkans would be able to deal with that in a democratic way, you can overcome that. And by overcoming that, it's my fundamental belief. You don't have to agree with that. Nobody has to agree with that, but please think it through. Any ethnic civil war, any ethnic tension, all of that, they are bad for your common future. And as I believe that your common future is within the European Union, because we need each other, not just geopolitically, not only, also in a transactional way that we can reinforce each other. but especially for that sort of reasons. By nature, Europe is very ethnic diverse, and it's getting more ethnic diverse because we have migration as well. And again, the only way to deal with that is via that democratic space. And it's the anti-democrats that benefit from rising tensions in this region, in your country, with the other former Yugoslavian countries in the neighborhood, because they love that sort of tension, but it will stall your progress as a nation, but also as a region.
And what is, according to your opinion, the specific role of Serbia in all these processes, both destructive and constructive?
Yeah.
Or possibly constructive?
Yeah, I'll come to that. Let me start with the more negative part. I think the history of Serbia is a history of ethnic tensions and of populism. I was a young woman. Well, I was even a teenager. Young woman when the Civil War broke loose, and at that time, I don't get to me by that, but at that time I hated Serbian people. By time I was too young to really recognize what was happening, but of course they were, and that is part of the problem as well. Because the rest of Europe scapegoated Serbia a lot, and of course they made a lot of mistakes, and a lot of awful things have happened. Don't let me get into that. But these things happen, and then you should go into reconciliation. And that didn't happen. I think it's also the fault of the people in Serbia. It's something, if you do not go into reconciliation with yourself and with your own faults and historical mistakes, but also in engagement with, for instance, Bosniak people, but also, of course, then you do not have then you don't have the ground to do what is possibly, and I really truly believe that Serbia can play a very positive role in the region. You're a leading country, you're the biggest, but also leading. You can also lead in a for the right English word, in a moral way. And so, yes, not just economically, but also based on values. There's huge opportunity. There's now a student movement in this country that has the opportunity to go in one of these directions. And of course, it's very diverse, and I acknowledge.
Very broad, in fact.
It's broad and diverse, and that's normal.
And which is at the moment necessary.
Yes, and I've been a student, and we had right wing and left wing, and a little bit more progressive, a little bit. That's okay, but there needs to be some common ground dealing with that. They are the young people of this country. They can take the lead. That lead should be pro-European, and I don't mean that by they always has to be in favor of Europe. It's not about the European institutions. It's about where do you belong.
It's again about values, about democracy as such. Yeah.
Yes, that's the way to go. And I truly believe if it's the nationalistic way,
it suspends democracy.
Yes.
That's our experience.
Yes. I think you are more experienced than I am too.
That's our main problem, in fact, with nationalism, because we can think of nationalism as an emancipatory project from the 18th and 19th century. And that is something completely different from comparing to the ethno-nationalism that we faced and we are still facing, and that literally destroyed our society. But speaking directly about that, one of the things that has most deeply affected people across our society, but across region as a whole, in relation to the students' movement in Serbia, is the image of mutual respect, but not just respect, affection is, I would say, the correct word, solidarity, and joint struggle of students from the region of Sandžak, Bosnian students, and students from other parts of Serbia. Their common struggle for their common future. And maybe for the first time, we saw a vision of the common future, directly, straightforwardly. For many people, it felt as though we were finally seeing an alternative to the hopelessness that has defined our lives here for decades.
Decades, yeah.
How does all of this look from your perspective? Do you believe that the unity advocated by the student movement could become a way to free Serbian society of all these things that you've just mentioned, and not just Serbian society, but of course, the region as a whole?
It's for the region as a whole. I think I want to mention two events of the last year that really conquered my heart in moving completely into so much appreciation and respect for the Serbian people, that what you mentioned, when we saw that images, and there was also a common prayer at the moment of time, which is, it is really moving, and you see that it binds people together, and it's the best medicine against that ethno-nationalism. And the other one is when the students ran to Brussels. I had tears in my eyes. I was there when they arrived, and I was so happy that I could be part of that magical event, because that was what it was. It rained like hell. It rained in Brussels. It was like, but sometimes it pours. But still, everybody was there, and that magical moment made me believe that there is a common future possible. And again, if young people can envisage that, they can overcome the history. Don't ever think that there's some sort of historical predetermination of your future. But sometimes you tend to think that you cannot overcome it, so it will always be that ethnic tensions that can go to civil or other wars. And I think the European project at itself proves that you can overcome that. There hasn't been a more violent continent than the European one. That now, and unfortunately, it ended with Putin invading Ukraine. And although Ukraine is not yet the European Union, it is part of Europe. But that idea is important, that Serbian people take that along. There's no such thing as some predestination. You make your own future. And students are showing that they can. And so these two moments, I think, they are very, very important.
And even all these, say it, formidable mountains of identities are in fact something that is asking for an interpretation. And we saw in all these images from Sandžak and from Serbia in general, that it's possible to reinterpret all these things that were nothing but obstacles in the past. But speaking about our common future, in order to reach it, there is one big obstacle that we have to overcome, and that is the governing Serbian regime, in fact. And so you've mentioned Orban and Orbanism and the elections in Hungary. Do you see, of course, that there are many parallels between Hungary and Serbia? I mean, we share literally a millennium-long common history. But what are the most important parallels when we compare situation in Hungary and their fight for democracy and the situation here in Serbia?
You always have to be a little bit careful with all that sort of comparisons, but it's good to look at what happened in Hungary. As I said, textbook Orban, it's been a very successful political methodology, but it ended. It's again the proof there's no such thing as a predestination, and you can make your own future. But I was surprised that it actually did happen. The similarities are obvious. there was no longer, we could talk in the past now, there was no longer a democracy in Hungary. Specialists will tell you, yeah, maybe, but let me be quite frank. And I talked to many specialists, also when I was in Budapest. They said if Orban wins another election, it's completely finished. And then they wouldn't have any place anymore in the European Union as well. So I don't know how we should have achieved that, but they have no place in the European Union without a democracy. That is a red line. But it was already turned down in a way that is rather similar to what's happening, unfortunately, in Serbia the last decade. There is no plurality in media in Serbia today, and I've been told it's getting worse.
Yeah.
So then it ends that all the media, or 90% of the media, is controlled by the government and the ruling party. Everybody knows the media is the fourth power. It controls the members of parliament, the political parties, the government, in a way that they inform the people what they are doing. It is extremely important. There was almost no civil society left. In Serbia, there is civil society, but it's not so strong anymore. And if it wasn't for the students, it might have been dead by now.
Or incorporated within the regime.
Yes.
Unfortunately.
Yes, absolutely. And there is no possibility anymore. There was no possibility in Hungary to have free and fair elections. There still was elections, and they were still more or less a little bit free, but they were not fair.
Yeah,
not
because there were no media liberties.
Yeah, of course. If you cannot talk to the public and have a debate and what normal democracies, every elections, not done many elections, you prepare yourself for all these debates with your how do you call that, your co-collegas, your other political parties, and people can see, okay, that's what she thinks, that's what he thinks. That's so of an essential part. So there is a lot of similarities between Serbia and Hungary. And not the same thing will happen. That doesn't. But what you see is, and that is also interesting for me, coming from a more classical left-wing political party. My party has been there. We change the name sometimes in my country, but it's the same party, and it's been there for more than 100 years. So, and it's part
of originally the Socialist Party.
The Socialist Party, yes, and we are part of the Socialist and Democrats, which is the second largest political group in the European Parliament, and we have, together with the Christian Democrats, we have built Europe. We also have built in all these member states the social system, and so we are, how do you say that, rooted. And I don't think we should be afraid of different political phenomena that are happening. And in Hungary, that was one of them. You could say Mayer and his TISA party, it's a very right-wing conservative. He is, the guy is. But they have so many members of parliament now, and they come from all sorts of parts of society, teachers, a professor, but also somebody from civil society. Because they all believed that they needed that movement to overcome Orban, and it happened. Nobody knew it would happen, so it's how it works. In Serbia, the student movement, they will present a list. That's what I've been told. I don't know when the elections will come. Nobody knows. But
in less than a year.
In less than a year, right. So everybody needs to be prepared, and I think everybody gets themselves prepared. That might make a change. There is a possibility. And for that, and I'm not here to give advice to political parties that are close to my heart in this country. because it doesn't work like that. It doesn't, oh, I come from the European Union, I'll tell you what to do. No, that doesn't work like that. So I'm not here to do that, but the only plea that I have is, please talk to each other, overcome differences. I know how it works. My political party is everywhere the same. We think we are in our right. We are the most intelligent, the best politicians. We know what to do, and that's why the rest should listen. I know how it works, and it's also about interests and of course, so political mandates. It's important. Without political mandates, you cannot make a change. But please, together, all of you, opposition, students, you have one thing that you need to do, that is to change the regime, to reinstall democracy, and then normal political process can,
of course,
work after that with left-wing, right-wing, progressives, and which I think it's important because that's democracy, all these different ideas, and people can choose.
Of course, but I have to say that not just as a member of the Democratic Party, but also, and even firstly, as a left-winger and a social democrat, I think that we have to support that broad civic front led by the students at the moment, because that's the way to regain space, political space, to reestablish our ideas within the political space, and to fight for values that we are advocating. That's the only way, I think. And that's why I've asked you that question, in fact. But there is one more. It's not enough to say that it's a big problem. It's a fundamental problem that is very strong destructive force within our, not just political system, but within our society, and it's corruption. And I don't know whether, I guess that you read something about that, but we had, it's not a scandal, it's a new case in a row of similar cases just before your visit with that high-ranking police officer. Did you? Yeah.
Somebody told me.
Yeah, I'll give you a few information about that. So what happened? One of the country's highest-ranking police officials, in fact, a former advisor to the president, Vučić, participated in a mafia killing. In case you're not familiar with details, what happened is that Veselin Milic, the head of the Belgrade police, allegedly attempted to mediate negotiations between two criminals, one of whom was also a former police officer. And when that former officer, in front of several witnesses, killed his associate, that's literally what happened. It's like The Godfather. Milic and several of his bodyguards, themselves police officers, reportedly took part in covering up the crime, removing the body, and concealing evidence. In addition, as you probably know, for years there has been substantial evidence pointing to the direct involvement of state officials and members of the ruling party here, Serbian Progressive Party, at various levels in criminal activities, drug trafficking, and so on. So my question is pointing to, I would say, a concrete thing. Is there anything that you, as a European politician, not just someone advocating social democratic values, but as a European politician here, representative of the European Union here, and your colleagues, that you can do in order to help us to deal with such a destructive level of corruption here? And because what we see here is that the ruling party is nothing but the wing of an organized criminal group. It's mafia at its best or worst, whatever. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, during all last year, we saw many transparents, and many here in our public space were inviting the European prosecutor, Laura Kövesi, to come here and to do something, I mean, more as a symbol than as an official. But is there anything that you can do in this situation in particular to help us deal with this, because it's something that is affecting our security in most personal way on everyday scale.
Mhm. It's a very difficult question. First of all, this is also, of course, part of the political system of Egypt. And it's, again, comparable to other cases, like Orban and other cases. Maybe this goes a little further. The criminal mafia connection is extremely frightening. It's already bad enough that public money, whether it's European money, because often it goes also with European money, or it is just the taxpayers' money of Serbian population, is used to enrich the network of the powerful. And that's a constant battle that you have to do also in democracies. Democracies are not free
Of corruption.
of corruption. We had cases.
Just one country, Italy.
Italy. Also in Belgium. So we had corruption cases. But it's part of the democratic system that you fight against it, that you have institutions.
It's a constant fight, in fact.
It's a constant fight. People are people, and greed is always there. But that is one thing, but that is completely unacceptable, because you take away money from people, you take away money from education, from social protection, from what makes the life meaningful and good, and what is the progress in your country, to give it to the few that are in power. But they need that in an autocracy or a dictatorship. You need that sort of system, because you need to keep everybody in your network on board. So you need that money, you need corruption, you need to give them that money.
And you need to manipulate with fear in everyday life.
Absolutely. But the next level is, of course, criminality that comes, that also endangers your personal integrity as a citizen. So I am shocked, I have to say. This is a case that, for me, that was new. Not that there was some sort of connection, but that this is possible.
This is direct involvement.
Yes. So the one thing is, it could that it came above the waterline. So that's something encouraging, I have to say. Maybe other things have happened also already in the past that nobody knew of. Probably, right? So this is the one and only good thing about this case, is that you can tell me that, and that a report is on its way or already arrived at the desk of Ursula von der Leyen and Marta Gost and Antonio Costa, to name the three that are important in this case, because we as Social Democrats, it's a side note, but it's important, we've been fighting the last couple of years really hard in the European Parliament to change the mindset of the Commission in that appeasement politics of this regime. And this case only just adds up to the decline of rule of law, the democracy, all the things that we have discussed. This is so the sort of next level where you can say, okay, but this, come on, guys.
It's too much.
It's too. But it's not just the decline of your democracy. There are autocracies where autocrats know that they have to still take care of the security of their people. Here you just don't care. But to your question, what to do, that is very difficult, because Serbia is not a part of the European Union. We cannot send our prosecutor. The only thing is, this should be the red line to say to the Commission, okay, this is it. Solve the problem, or the money will dry up completely. But it's always the same, that's the only leverage that we still have. And that's not good enough. Because, I think we need to do that. We've advocated in the Parliament before this case, just based on the decline of the democracy in Serbia. We said, okay, it should end, the funding of this regime. But it also has a negative side. You know, people in Serbia perceive, and of course, on top of that, eat a lot of propaganda from Vučić and his guys. They use it to say, you see, Europe, they don't like us. They don't want us. They just want to get rid of us. And now they stop paying what they promised they should pay, which is valid paying. What we support the enlarging countries, which is important to help countries through a transition. And but if then it can be used to fuel the anti-European feelings in Serbia. And I think we need to.
That was exactly the case with the European funds in Hungary.
Right. Absolutely.
They were used to undermine the European project.
So it's a very delicate subject. And next to stop the funding, we absolutely need a way of communicating with Serbian people on how much we want to align with each other. It's not just we want you in because we think it's interesting, or you just think we want to be in the European Union because it brings us prosperity or something, or more money. No, it's what we started this podcast with. It's the values.
And we want to liberate ourselves. No?
Yes, and it's not just about your economic prosperity. It's about the common future that we can build, also in a very difficult geopolitical environment. And there we need to change, and that's self-criticism. That we in the European Union need to change that. We need to be much more welcoming, and we need to deliver on what we've promised also to Serbia and Serbian people.
Well, we can say that in the last 15 to 20 years, social democracy was generally within the European political space in a crisis, deep crisis. But if I can say so, are we regaining our space? Because we saw what happened in Spain, Portugal, Ireland, Denmark, but we also saw what happened in Germany.
Yes. It's a question that is very difficult to answer, in the sense that in times of fear, we are in times of fear, unfortunately, and that's why it's important that we bring hopeful message. And there is a lot of hope. We still live in one of the best parts of the world. We still have a lot of peace, although it's been nibbled on, not just nibbled on, just the invasion in Ukraine is a real backslash. But the fear, there is a lot of fear because we have, especially now Trump is back. He, having that partnership with the United States has always been it's not a lifeline. We don't need lifelines in Europe, but it's a sort of partnerships that brings you
a kind of stability,
security, also literally, and that's been broken now. And many good things will come of that. That's why I'm a social democrat and an optimist, because finally we will have a sovereignty agenda. We will work on our own defense program. We will, and it's happening already. So, and we're progressing really fast. Many people don't see that, but we progress really fast. We make new partnership with our trade agreements. So a lot of very positive things.
We don't need a big brother.
No. Yeah. And maybe in the future we will regain that partnership, but without us being
on different grounds.
Yes, it will be on different grounds. But what I wanted to say is there is a lot of fear in our societies. You see that, and when people are afraid, they tend to turn much more to right wing or extreme right. And
authoritarianism, which offers them security.
Yes, they think that they need a strong man. For one reason, the other is always a man.
In fact, for one reason.
It was a little bit ironic. That reminded me of a conversation I had just before this podcast with a human rights activist here in Serbia. And she said she's working also on a broad women's network, also in politics in Serbia. Not that women are better than men, that's not the issue, but women tend to be much more open for dialogue, and that's what you exactly need. And that's a little bit in opposition to the fear and the fact that you think you need a strong man to solve the problems. And I would ask Serbian people, did Vučić really solve the problems? I don't think so. I don't think you would have been in a much better place if you would have a democratic president and regime, and you would be in a much better place here in Serbia.
Kathleen, thank you very, very much for this wonderful conversation. I really enjoyed it.
Me too.
And I hope that we can repeat this.
We will. And I'll be back. This is not my first time in Belgrade, and I'll be back to support the Democratic Party, to support the progressive forces, but also the democratic forces. That's first you need democracy, and then you need social democracy.
Of course. I hope that we'll have many reasons for celebration in following months and years. Hvala vam što ste i danas bili uz nas. Nema šta drugo da vam kažem osim ti i ja Slavija, 23. maj. Vidimo se na Slaviji i naravno studenti pobeđuju.